Monsters Immortals, or M&M for short, my favorite candy. Known best as the multiplayer variant of Dark Deception, Glowstick Entertainment's horror sensation, this game obviously has a future planned with lots of collaborations and content in the works, so I figured let's document the game's first year being out and about. Just a forewarning, this retrospective is going to be on the sarcastic, satirical side. If you've seen these videos, you know what you're in for. While I'll mostly be focusing on my thoughts and experiences over these past 365 plus days, I will try to acknowledge the community's feelings on matters whenever I can. Now I said 365 plus instead of just 365 because we're going all the way back to the game's unveil, not just the release. Screw it, I'm not calling this video Monsters Immortals 1.5 years in, so take it or leave it. This is gonna be a long one, so strap in. If you only want to get up to speed on a certain part, I'll be putting time codes in the video description for each of the major stuff. Alright, I've exhausted all the time I can before the intro, let's get comprehensive. On April 1st, 2020, it was revealed that an upcoming multiplayer spin-off was in development. Vince Livings, the creator of Dark Deception, made the announcement at the tail end of Glowstick's third Q&A livestream. A multiplayer mode or version of Dark Deception had always been a heavily requested addition by longtime fans. So I gotta be honest, Vince, that's one heck of an April Fool's prank. Oh, it's real? The teaser trailer for Monsters Immortals came onto the scene in early May and certainly jump-started discussion. It didn't really show much since the trailer's purpose was mainly just to announce the game's existence, but it got the ball rolling. However, the most notable part about this trailer was the brute from Monstrum making an appearance, confirming that this game wasn't just Dark Deception exclusive. The day after the trailer, Glowstick posted the trailer theme in its entirety, Ascension, back when I used to love this theme. Don't get me wrong, I still like this music, but having it be the only thing playing on the main menu really gets tiring after a while. Later that month, we even got 2 new tracks for the Monstrum DLC, and that was May. Oh, unless you count Q&A 4. Nowadays, most live Q&As aren't anything to write home about, but back then, they were the talk of the town. That doesn't mean I'm gonna cover everything in them because Jesus Christ can they get long. Unlike the Q&As, I don't want this video to hit an hour's worth of runtime, so I'll only bring them up if the information is significant enough. A crossover with Yandere Simulator was confirmed, which was honestly a safe bet. Glowstick already collaborated with Yandere Dev for Lovesick Labyrinth prior, and yes, that's the first time someone has acknowledged that game's existence since 2020. Something I actually found quite a bit interesting is that Vince proposed the possibility of M&M releasing before DD Chapter 4. Now this told me that either Monsters Immortals was going to be pretty bare bones at launch, or Chapter 4 was more far off than we were thinking at the time. They were both correct. With June, we actually got our first glimpse at game footage showcasing Agatha in the hotel hitting herself. This was also the month that the Glowstick Entertainment and Keplerian's partnership became official, and while it predominantly was for Evil Nun the Broken Mask, an M&M DLC was announced alongside it. News on the release date was also set to come out the following month, and sure enough it did. Literally 5 minutes in the Q&A Live, episode 6, someone asked Vince and we got our answer, October 16th, 2020. This date was doubled down on Twitter, Steam achievements were said to be coming to the game, and that's it for July, moving on. Nothing happened in August, but September started strong with tons of confirmations. Every main character from chapters 1 through 3 of Dark Deception, Monstrum's Fiend, Senpai from Yandere Simulator, and the Lost Child from Evil Nun were all giving official cards to signify their inclusion. Yandere Dev himself was even confirmed, and man, I can't wait to play as him. We also got the Pizza Time track posted, Doug Hauser, Dee Dee's protagonist slated to be on the way, and a delay. Well, kind of. Oh hey, delay, doesn't that rhyme? Instead of the full game launching on the 16th, a private public beta would be held for a group of 1,000 players, which would be determined via a future sign-up sheet. So we'd still be getting the game on the day promised, just not the full game, and I was completely okay with this. Since multiplayer was still something the team was figuring out, it was understandable. Pricing details came out later that day at $9.99, and things were looking up for the following month. October, here we go! Glowstick started out the month with the Chapter 4 monsters getting their slots reserved, and we got our first look at the devs themselves crossing over into M&M. Herobrine's Soul Collection main, 50 shard penalty, they all looked awesome. And Daniel Dombrowsky, the company's music composer, was also said to be coming down the road. On the 11th, the aforementioned sign-up form went out, and it exceeded expectations. So much so that the form was ditched completely, and the beta became fully open to the public. Being the first Dark Deception installment in over a year, fans wanted in, and the demand was high. And this demand only increased tenfold when the Steam page went up. Media from the actual game was incredibly sparse. Who knew sharing 7 screenshots of an unreleased indie game was enough to send hype levels off the charts? Why is there a giant goal watcher? Who is that? What is that? Is that a chef monkey? Why does this look so cool? So many questions, and the store description only heightened curiosity and hype, and the beta was only a few days off. After clarifying exactly what content was in the beta compared to the launch, teasing Vince's model, and sharing one last piece of music destined to fight, Dark Deception's multiplayer journey finally kicked off. The beta came with 6 characters, 2 maps, and 2 game modes. Murder Monkey, Agatha, Goldwatcher, and Dread Ducky joined the battle as monsters, while Doug Hauser and Detective Evans were the first mortals. Each character was sorted into a class that determined their stats such as speed, damage output, health, etc., you know the deal, and also given an ultimate ability. Every character is basically a derivative of another, since characters in the same class have identical stats with some slight exceptions to their attack ranges. Ultimates are character-specific abilities that are essentially the main way characters are made unique from one another. Everyone has 2 forms of dealing basic damage, light and heavy attacks. Light attacks are quicker but don't hit as hard, while heavies can be devastating but take twice as long to land. The starting stages were the hotel from Monkey Business and the hedge maze from Deadly Decadence. Scattered throughout these maps are portal boxes, which anyone can pick up for a special ability. These can either be buffs for yourself, debuffs for opponents, or bananas for Mario Kart, you know, whatever. I don't know, logic left the room when he clicked on this video. Exceptions to this are the event triggers for Trap and Boss Time. Trap Time unleashes environmental hazards that negatively impact all players if not accounted for, and Boss Time summons an all-powerful, unstoppable boss monster for players to avoid. Every map has unique bosses and traps to stir up mayhem. With the first maps in particular, they introduced brand new, never-before-seen bosses, in the form of the Chef Monkey and Watcher Titan. 2 Chef Monkeys raise chaos when awakened in Monkey Business by making beelines to the closest targets. These things get right to the point and can honestly be really hard to evade sometimes. Meanwhile, Titan Watcher takes advantage of the hedge maze having no roof and rains on the parade with throwing giant axes all over the field. Deadly Decadence even gets more insane with tall spike traps that go off in intervals, and the hotel just scatters the aforementioned Mario Kart bananas everywhere for its trap time. On these maps, you could play one of 2 game modes. Maze Escape, most similar to standard Dark Deception, 1 monster versus 3 mortals trying to get away. Collecting the assigned number of soul shards opens up the escape portal for mortals to flee through. Monsters win if they successfully stop all mortals from escaping, and the mortals win if the opposite plays out. Ever wonder what would happen if Fortnite and Dark Deception met in a back alleyway? Well, Shard Mayhem is probably the closest result we'll ever get to that. 4 monsters all battling in a deadly free-for-all. The one who can amass the most amount of soul shards by the end is deemed the victor. Certain YouTubers got early access on the morning of release, and some were even streaming themselves playing with each other and the developers. Being available just a few hours later, fans were finally able to step into the Dark Deception multiplayer ring. And how did that go? It was pretty good. The beta was only available for about 5 days, but that didn't stop the community from eating this thing up and then some. While basic, the game provided some stupid fun. Nothing was even that unbalanced in the grand scheme of things at the time. No riots were formed. Of course it wasn't perfect, but a good amount of the major bugs were patched pretty fast. The only real issues I had were the strange lack of a settings menu and there not really being any rewards. Winning a game was nice and all, but there wasn't any incentive to keep playing outside of just wanting to have fun. Players weren't working towards anything. Now again, this was just a beta, a free one after all, and these 2 additions in particular were addressed to be coming with the launch version, so I couldn't complain. Not having a settings menu was really odd though. I mean, the button was there, you just couldn't click on it. Why? But even while the beta was still going strong, Glowstick wasn't leaving us hanging in terms of announcements, showing off progress of Nixon's model, confirming that the Monstrum DLC would come shortly after the game's launch, and declaring a whole new crossover, the Coma. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because I'm going to be honest, I never learned anything else about this game in the 1 year since this announcement was made, so moving on. Backtracking a bit to the Monstrum DLC, additional details such as the pricing and how DLC maps work came forward. In lobbies, as long as the hosting player has the DLC, anyone else in the group can play on the map. This is actually a pretty solid alternative for those who want the map but not the characters. But if you want the characters, screw you, pay the money. On the topic of characters, the finished models of Vince and Pen were showed, and can we just appreciate the character models for this game? Not the Dark Deception ones, those are phenomenal, but the new ones specifically for Monsters and Mortals are on a whole other level. So much detail, and I don't typically use this word, but these models are sexy. Please support this man. Please. Later that month, right before the intended release, the launch trailer came out, and guys, I love this trailer. The fast pace and intense nature of the editing really fits with the vibe of Eminem. The only feeling not captured in the trailer is the BS. But who cares, new trailer. It showed off Malek, Beers, Clown Gremlin, and the revitalized Stranger Sewers map. We even got a damn good new remix of Doom Ducky's theme, now entitled Doom and Despair, which was uploaded on its own shortly after the trailer. But the inner fanboy inside of me was like, a new support class? Clown Patrol? Malek has a frickin' laser beam? Dark Deception's best boss, at the time, is back? Oh man, I can't wait to play this game tomorrow, son of a... So Glowstick couldn't get their build approved in time for Friday, and because of Steam's no releases on weekend policy, the game had to be pushed. I couldn't be too mad at the developers. I mean, the game was done, and to compensate, they were even working to add in extra characters in time for the new launch date, November 2nd. Now the video's title is accurate. The last few minutes of your life have been a lie, and now things are going to start being truthful. Launch day came, and here's where things got interesting. No achievements, damn. But an options menu, visual settings, input adjustments with controller support, but oddly no sound tab. But that's perfectly fine. I'm sure Glowstick Entertainment wouldn't leave the community for so long without sound options in one of their games. Right? One key difference was how friend play matches worked. Before, you could lobby up with others, and clicking play would throw you both into a private session within World Play. Now the host can decide exactly what map and mode they want to torture their friends with. The lobby will then give you a 6-digit code to send to others so they could join your game, and no, you can't use the codes in Among Us, I tried. Winning a game now grants you a red shard, and successfully completing a match lets you at least hang on to the soul shards you grabbed while playing. No store or anywhere to spend these forms of currency anywhere though, so we were just forced to play the saving up game until later notice. We got probably one of the most hated items added into the Portal Box Roulette, Soul Corruption. Reverses all player controls for a short period of time. Have fun! This item is definitely meant to peeve players off, so that's a thing. From here on out, we will also be bringing up the game's meta, or most strategic characters players just had a field day with. I in no way have that much smarts when it comes to breaking down a game's competitive scene, but I don't care, we're doing this anyway. Even though it was harder to judge with the beta, Agatha was by far the most powerful, being able to deal an immediate 100 damage to the foe with the lowest health. Her viability was also greatly increased with the most recent map at the time, Stranger Sewers. It was massive. Take Monkey Business for instance, people generally liked playing on this map, and for good reason. The size and layout are perfect for multiplayer, but when we reach Stranger Sewers, oh my god, it's bigger than PewDiePie's sub count. Couple this with how basic the map was with large linear hallways, and we have a map that greatly benefits speed monsters for maze escape, everybody. If you go a power monster on this map instead, good frickin' luck. You are going to have a ridiculously hard time catching mortals off guard. There are barely any places to cut players off here. Doom Ducky, the stage's boss, is also just not that dangerous. Just look both ways before crossing the street and you'll be fine. This game taught me how to do that in real life too. Now the boss is a pretty decent threat in the level center, but let's be honest, no one goes there, why would you? Same with the short spike traps, they can be pretty tricky the closer you get to the middle, but they're barely a threat elsewhere. So yeah, great map for Agatha, and as we'll see later on, future speed monsters. But players also quickly realized how good Clown Gremlin was with his ultimate here. In fact, same with the other maps. Pressing Q summons 5 clones onto the battlefield to harass others with light attacks, but there was literally no way to get rid of them. But that was only half the story. Attack ranges are known to fluctuate considerably between different characters, so much so that they play a key role in determining a character's usefulness. Good examples being Monkey and Ducky. Monkey's heavy attack has minimal reach, and Ducky's light can deliver assault from a good distance. Clown's heavy has more range than my use of vocabulary, it's nuts. Next to Agatha, he utterly dominated matches in World Play, and I'd even argue that back then he was the most played monster. Now you may have noticed that these characters were mainly issues in Maze Escape. What about Shard Mayhem? Well, due to the massive health that monsters had there, ultimates didn't really turn the tide of games so easily. And this was true. Until our first balancing update. Version 1.1.5 arrived a mere 3 days after launch. The most obvious change was the inclusion of this little widget on the left side of your screen. This relays all information such as player devs, respawn, certain items, ultimates, etc. Definitely a great addition I'm sure we'll all value. Chef Monkeys no longer had collision and blocked players. Before, if you got cornered, it was basically sayonara. Clown Gremlin got nerfed to where 5 hits would now kill his clones instead of them being invincible, but that barely made a dent in his player base. Kills earned by his clones would also now count for whoever they belong to. Bananas can now be destroyed with just one heavy attack, and fans rejoiced. I see a lot of new players complaining about these traps today, and I can't help but imagine if this change wasn't implemented, how much worse their whining would be. All of these changes were completely fair and accepted, but the next batch of adjustments was a bit more controversial. The bulk of the new changes altered Maze Escape. Mortals now lost shards based on their class, effectively decimating the pen pal population since losing 50 shards upon death is damn harsh. Who thinks this is alright? Players in Ghost Mode can now see everyone through walls, mortals can see their teammates, and now monsters could see every mortal. This definitely helped up the action in certain matches. Under the right circumstances, a monster could literally spend most of their game just simply trying to find mortals, especially in sewers. Speaking of that level, Stranger Sewers actually got a size reduction, axing 2 of the 4 big rooms. It's still freaking huge, don't get me wrong, but it was a good step in the right direction to make this map at least a bit more bearable. Yet now we reach the real meat of this update, the stats rework. Every character, or rather every class, had their health and damage output completely modified in an attempt to even the playing field. The goal was to make monsters not absolute beasts and give mortals more of a fighting chance against them. But I don't know, man, some would argue they took it too far. It's way too easy for mortals to just wallop on a monster. 3, 2, or heck, even just one mortal can now stand their ground. Even today, certain people wish the game would revert back to the old system. I'm not sure if I'm one of them, but I do see where they're coming from. Personally, I just feel that monsters aren't enough of a challenge in Maze Escape anymore. But since these adjustments were global, they spilled into Shard Mayhem as well. And oh boy, here comes the madness. If there was any doubt about Agatha being top tier, this update proved many wrong. 100 damage wasn't that big of a deal before, but the health decrease made it much more problematic. The only real way to counter it was to use a shield at the right moment, which is way easier said than done, or to use a health pack, which, like getting a shield, is luck-based. Now I'm using present tense here because this is still the way Agatha operates today, same with the now busted Dread Ducky. Both of these ults should do a percentage instead of just a hard-coded number, but that's just what I would do. What about the mortal side though? Well, Detective Evans was definitely a popular pick with being able to freeze monsters for 10 seconds, but aside from that, character choices were pretty varied. Bierce, Vince, Nixon, the last one also stood out, but his full potential hadn't yet arrived.